Again, Charlie.
Again.
What?
Okay.
What do I pay you nothing for?
Sorry, boss. Sorry, boss.
Welcome to episode 14 of Talking Florida Rugby Occasionally. It has been weekly, although we are going to take a week off in a couple of weeks because I got this work thing in the way. But episode 14, it is Ladies' Night. Although we do have a man who's going to come in and ruin Ladies' Night, just as they always do. Before we get, well, obviously you and I are here, so we're ruining it already. We're ruining this beautiful scenery we're going to have in a bit. But we are going to have Evan Haig come in a minute to talk about USA Rugby finally announcing the due structure for next season. Obviously, the registration date is supposed to be September 1st, which is coming up on Tuesday, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, Tuesday, I think, is the 1st. So, but things aren't quite ready yet for you to register. Obviously, we're all missing our rugby big time, but we're not quite ready to register everybody just yet. But we'll get to Evan in a second. But first, we do have a gracious sponsor of our episode this evening, and that is Ail Hakim of Elite Public Adjusters. Ail currently coaching Boca Raton men. In the past, has coached Fort Miami women, FAU women, and as well as the Phoenix Invitational 7s and 15s side, which we'll get into in a little bit with a couple of the girls as well. Charlie, do you know what an insurance adjuster is?
I do not, actually. I know this one.
You're going to learn something today. Ail's, I'm sure, going to tell us a little more about it later on this evening. But an insurance adjuster basically works with your insurance company. If you have a claim, determines how much that insurance company should be paying you. A lot of the times, these insurance companies try to pay you as little as they possibly can. But an insurance adjuster will come in and help you get more money than you should from these guys. And obviously, you only get paid if they end up getting you extra money. So you can get in touch with Ail at 844-435-4831, or you can email him at ehakim, that's EHAKIM, at theelitepa.com, which is also his website, theelitepa.com. And he is running a big promotion right now in that he will review your current insurance policies and let you know about your coverages, maybe where you're missing some coverages, etc., or maybe where you have too much coverage. So, again, thanks to Ail for sponsoring our episode this evening. Again, Ail is at theelitepa.com. So now, Charlie, you've already learned something. We're only 2 minutes into this episode. even if you're advanced age, you're learning in every episode of TFRO. You're not as old as you look. I will give you that.
Thank you. I'm not.
All right. Let's get it. We're not doing three quick things today. We're going to do one quick thing, which, Charlie, I don't know if you're going to put up the graphic initially or not, but USA Rugby and the national councils, which is sort of the new way they formed USA Rugby, they've completed discussions. They announced this week that they've completed discussions to finalize the community service agreements for each level of the community game. There's going to be a community department now. And as you can see there, obviously the big thing everybody was waiting for was going to be the dues pricing. Now, obviously, as Evan may explain in a minute, this does not include whatever dues your local union will charge you. This is just your base USA Rugby dues. This is not the total that you'll be paying. It likely is the total for the coaches and the referees, though. But for the players, you will likely be paying somewhere towards what the coaches and referees are paying for a year. So there is a new thing, which is a training membership. So if you just want to train with a club and not play games, you can pay, I think, what's that say, $25 there, Charlie?
Yes. Yeah, 25.
$25 and $26.50 if you're in a senior club training. There's full memberships of rookie rugby's only $5, youth $25, high school $25, college $32, and senior club $35. Coaches will be charged $65 and referees $65. But again, you won't have to pay any local dues if you're either of those. And an admin will pay $35 as well. So let's at this time bring in Evan Haig, General Manager of the FRU and the FYRU, who's kindly joined us this evening on TFRO, and we'll talk about these dues. Evan, how are you, my man?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. Thanks for joining us.
No worries at all.
What insight can you give into these? Did the numbers surprise you, or did you sort of know what was coming? And
we knew roughly where it was coming. It's been a long wielding process on this to get to this point. I was just glad that they finally got agreements. The last group to agree was the youth in high school, and they've had their own issues in terms of dealing with USA Rugby, but that's I think it's all kind of washing through and getting that going. The biggest problem right now is the USA Rugby are trying to flip the switch on with 2 days notice, and not having everything in place that we want. But I just wanted to clarify the training membership and the point behind that. USA Rugby understands that that due to COVID, some teams may return to training and training only, and you would need insurance to do that and so on. So this is the way to offer a discount of membership for them to do that. And then if they want to become a player and play actual games against another club, you then just go back into the system and upgrade, and then you'll pay the difference from that. I think it's $26.50, but I think it varies on different levels. And you pay the upgrade for that to become a full player. So you just pay the difference for whatever that fee is from that. And apparently the Sports Loma system has the ability to be able to upgrade your membership to do that.
Okay, so you mentioned Sport Loma, which I think we talked a little bit about in our town hall and also the earlier episode we had with you and Kerry and the board. So to tell us a little bit about how Sport Loma is going to differ from how people used to register.
Yeah, so Sport Loma is actually a really good service. It's an upgrade from what we had before, which was WebPoint. But the key with Sport Loma is it has the ability for when a player makes payment for that money to get split straight away to the different entities that need to have that money. So we used to get our money taken to USA Rugby, and then 2 months later we'd get our cash, and if that was accounted for correctly, then we were good. So that was always a huge task, trying to keep that accountable and keeping that in process. And the youth union, we actually stepped away from doing that, and we did it in reverse. We took the money up front, and then we paid USA Rugby on the back end because the cash flow is too slow. So this kind of solves that problem. And the great feature for the clubs is the clubs can actually add in their membership fees. So your club dues, you can add that in on top. So you can say a player, it's $150 to play rugby, and 75 of that goes to the union and to various different parts, and you guys get that money directly into your account too. That's a feature that they're wanting to roll out, and all the clubs will have access to do that. It's pretty straightforward. It's just going to take some time for us to get to that point for all the clubs to want to do that. And not everybody may not want to do that. They may just want to have everybody go in and just do their own baseline components of where they're on. And that's really on each individual club as how they want to structure that and deal with that, because everybody has different dues and different members pay different amounts, and some people have discounts. So that's a feature that I think is a really nice add-on to Sport Lomo. The problem with it right now is that they've merged the old data into the new one, and we've had some issues. So most of the players and coaches and so on Friday morning would have got an email from Sport Lomo asking him to register or something along those lines. And a lot of them ended up being, there's been some errors within that. So a couple of really interesting ones, which we're trying to sort out. One is that Jacksonville women somehow can't register for Jacksonville women's program. They can only register for Jacksonville men. So there's an issue there that I'm trying to work out with what's going on there. And then the greatest one is all the Miami Tridents players were merged into the Miami RFC thing. So all of a sudden now we have some guys who are very upset that they're now Miami RFC players, and
vice versa. Yes.
And vice versa. So I just like any of those issues, I would just encourage anybody if they have them just to reach out directly to me. I'm happy to deal with all of it. I've been trying to deal with as much as possible, and I'll just help everybody navigate through it. And then the same thing right now, usually when I'm trying to get clarification on Boca, your dad's actually been talking to me a good minute about this, is Boca trying to get their COI so they can continue renting their fields, even though they're not using them at the moment. They want to continue that contract. But the new COI is active September 1st. I'm trying to get from USA Rugby whether they'll just allow them to get one of those straight away from a club rather than having to get 15 players registered and so on, just so they can have that, not have to deal with, because we've got issues with that. I still can't get an answer back. My assumption is yes. I was told a couple of months ago that, that should be no problem. We should be able to get, about a month ago, we should be able to do that. Now I'm actually trying to follow through and work out what that mechanism is. So we're still trying to get exactly, for those clubs who need to get certificate of insurance to keep that, exactly what the parameters are that USA Rugby are going to set for that. So that's going to be a complicated component too. But again, if clubs have that, they just reach out to me, and I'm happy to help and add them to the list of the many clubs that need that.
Yeah, it's just going to be an ongoing process. That's just going to take a little bit. Obviously, we're not playing any matches anytime soon, but as you said, teams do need to kind of reserve their fields, and they need that, that certificate of liability in order to get that done. So hopefully everything will get moving here in the next couple of weeks. Do we know how much it's going to cost for a club to register with USA Rugby? I noticed that wasn't on the
I think it's $50 a club. From what I can tell in the back end of the system, it's 50, but they didn't announce that. And that's where I don't want to speak. Matter of fact, I know the youth and high school, we're going to be, I think, all in for a club like 150 for a club.
Okay.
I don't know about the adults, whether there's going to be an ad, because the youth and high school have youth and high school council, and they've added on some fees on that because they're going to provide a lot more support to the youth and high school teams than what's previously been done by USA Rugby. So that money is going to get directly allocated to them to do that. For the adults and the colleges, I have a conference call tonight to discuss exactly where our finance is going to be at that. For the two women's college divisions, it looks like the men's college division will be sitting independent from any direct council per se. So it'll still be a part of USA Rugby, but the 8 men's college teams will sit independent at the moment. It's what the general consensus is from that, because we don't know what this year looks like for them. The senior women are, the college women are going to sit underneath the CRAA, so there's going to be some added charges in there, but we're just kind of navigating all of that at the moment. And then the senior men and women's club sides, I don't know. I don't believe there's any extra added charges from that council at this time. Carrie's been the one mainly dealing with that front.
Right.
And from what the last piece that I had heard from her, that there wasn't going to be any added charges. So I think it's only $50 a club, but that details hasn't been pushed on to everybody. So I know it's kind of not the answers everybody wants, but I think we're almost there. And the finances seem to be coming out in the end. The USA Rugby have given details of where the money's being spent and how it gets split and all of this stuff. So which is more of a positive. And the council seem to have a lot more ability to make USA Rugby accountable under this system than what was previous before, which is what the major problem was.
For sure. And final question before I let you go.
Yep.
Do you know how much the union would be adding on top of that for most players? Just so if I'm a senior player in Florida, I'm obviously paying what the USA Rugby says for me to pay there.
Right. So
with the 30, whatever it was, 35 for a senior, I think he says.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so how much will FRU be adding on top of that?
So we're just keeping our same rate from the previous couple of years at 35.
Okay.
But I don't believe at the moment, and I have to get this double confirmed with the board, but we're not going to charge our fee on the training fee. So if people are just doing training right now, I don't believe the FRU is going to add that on. But as a full member, that full member includes the 35. So it's 235, so it's $70. I'm assuming at checkout, there'll be some form of, transactional fees on top of that. So I'd imagine it'll be 70 something and change for a senior player, which is a decrease because I think we were at 88 last year for senior players to register, I think, if I remember correctly, including all the fees. So it's a decrease in cost, which is a positive. And I think we're getting the same amount of services we were before, even though national championships are going to get run by the council, but they have their own way of being able to handle that. So I think all in all, it seems to be pretty positive.
Good stuff. Just going to take a little bit of time, as you said. We'll get worked out, hopefully, by the time everybody's ready to play. Well, Evan, thanks for joining us. Obviously, we'll get our money from USA Rugby now, which is obviously one of the biggest issues when all this went down with the bankruptcy, was that a lot of the local unions were owed money by USA Rugby for money that they go out and spent elsewhere. Obviously, that was a big issue, but now that seems to be sorted out by the Sport Lomo system. So, Evan, appreciate you joining us this evening, and good luck with all your Zooms and calls over the next few weeks.
Thanks, Ross.
I don't envy you when it comes to that, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, mate.
No worries. All right. You have a good evening.
Obviously, if you have any questions directly for Evan, he's pretty accessible via email. His email, if you didn't catch it there, is listed on the Florida Rugby site, evan.haig@floridarugby.org. All the board members are pretty accessible. You can get all their emails at floridarugby.org. Okay, we did see Thor's comment there. I think Thor's a Trident's player, but obviously a bit of comedy there with those two rosters getting merged, which of course that was the only way that would happen, right? All right, Charlie, let's get to the real reason we're here tonight in episode 14, and that's to talk to some ladies moving on up in the rugby world outside of the state of Florida, or inside some of them as well. So let's get to, actually, I think only one is still in Florida for now. We'll get to her in a minute. Let's bring them all in at once, and then we'll go around the room. I noticed Morgan Freeman did join us. A little better late than never. Is she not here? Okay. Well, I'm sure Morgan will be back. She was having some streaming issues. It fits much more nicely with the four of us on here anyway, split screen like this. So, ladies, thanks for joining us. I'm going to go around the room here. We have Cortney Kuehl. I think I got her bottom right on my screen. I'm pretty sure she's the oldest of the bunch. I'm not sure who's oldest out of Alex and Sandra, but we'll get to those two in a second. So, Cortney, for those of you that don't know, Cortney, give us a bit of your rugby history. Obviously, started here in Florida and has advanced outside the state and outside the country. So, give us a bit of your brief back. Well, no, give us a good chunk of your background.
All right. Well, I started at the University of Central Florida, UCF. I started that my freshman year, so that was back in like 2013, 2014 now. Played for them throughout of college. Obviously, Raul Bess, everyone knows that.
Oh, yes, we had him on.
Yes,
an episode already.
He's an amazing coach. Love to have him and push me on. After that, I played for Orlando Women in sevens and things like that, and some of the high performance teams around Florida, going for like sevens nationals and things like that. So I had that opportunity. But after college, I got recruited to go play up for the Atlanta Harlequins, which is in the WPL team. And I played for them starting in 2018. Yes, I started out actually as a 13 or outside center at UCF. And then this last year, I actually kind of moved to 8-man, which has been an amazing transition, if you ask me.
Around the ball a lot more, that's for sure.
Yes, because it's the same aggression I think you have as like the 13, I think, and like loose forwards are the same position. It's just where you're at on the field. But I was lucky enough in 2018, I got selected to play on the USA November tour. So we went to Chicago and played against the All Blacks. Went to England, and then we went and played in Ireland. And so that was just a lot of fun. But when I was there, I was going as a 13. And then when I got back from that, that's kind of when I actually got pushed more to being an 8. And I think a big reason being is, especially in like women's or USA, when you go to World Cup, we have so many amazing sevens players that actually get pushed. As weird as it says, they get pushed to be the back line in the World Cup team. And so with my skill set and being able to play on the team for USA, it made more sense to put me at 8-man or like a loose forward 7 or 6 too, so that I have the talent that I have as a 13, putting it more in towards the forward. So I have still the same speed as the backline players, but then just pushing it towards the front. And so then now that I'm getting the experience there, hopefully pushing towards a World Cup. Hopefully this next one, if not the following.
Awesome. I will make a statement that the Atlanta Harlequins are the only Harlequins that I like. The team from London, the Harlequins, I despise, although they won today, which actually helped. But let's go back to what was your sport background before you picked up rugby? I always like to find out what sports before they got into rugby.
I'm actually classically trained in ballet.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good footwork then.
Yes. All the footwork, good balance, and good center of gravity. I did dance since I was 6 until I graduated high school, which is when I found rugby. And I played other sports too growing up, whatever my parents put me in. But it was mostly dance that I did the most part. And I think that, that definitely I feel very confident in someone can hit me from any direction. And generally I can find my balance and keep pushing forward. And also I definitely think my strides when I play rugby are pretty leap-ish, if you will.
Well, so what did your parents say when you said, Mom and Dad, I'm going to play rugby. I've been a dancer all my life, and now I'm going to play rugby? They probably said, what is that? And you explained it to them, and they, I'm sure, gasped. Do you remember that time you told them how heavy you were getting into rugby? Yeah,
my mom said absolutely not. And then she was like, I have to see it. And then I'm pretty sure my dad was like, thank God.
Awesome stuff. All right. Well, we'll get back to you and the rest of your story in a little bit more. Let's get to everybody else we've got here. We'll start with Morgan. We'll go down the age list here. Morgan Freeman has joined us for now. Hopefully she sticks around. Morgan, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, you came
I'm loving the shirt, by the way.
What was that?
Loving the shirt.
Oh, thank you. It's a soccer shirt, but it was what I had on. I didn't feel like changing today, so this is what I have on today.
That's nice.
Probably because half of my rugby shirts don't fit me at the moment, unfortunately. They got this COVID thing, the COVID 15 pounds, I think, that everybody's added on. So you obviously came to American rugby through a very different route than everybody else in here. So talk a bit about how you started playing and where you are at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm from England originally, and I started playing when I was about 5 years old. And I played with mostly boys up until I was 12. And then I switched over to the girls scene. And then I moved to the US. I moved to Florida in 2016. Played for Ruckus, Fort Lauderdale, Fort Miami Women, and then I started at Lindenwood.
Now, what brought you to America? Was it a job? Not your job, obviously, but somebody else's job?
No. So my mom's originally American, and she lived in England for 25 years or so, and we always kind of wanted to move back as a family, and figured that for college it would be best to come to the US.
And does your family have a rugby background?
Yeah, so big rugby background. My dad always played. My brother grew up playing. So I kind of just got into it at a very young age. Can you guys still see and hear me? Because my Wi-Fi is awful.
We can hear you right now. We're doing well so far. You'll see yourself disappear if we lose you.
Okay, because I'm sorry, I'm at college. My Wi-Fi is terrible.
That's all right. We see everybody in their concrete bunkers that are at college here.
Right.
I'll ask you briefly about, before we get into everybody else and come back to you, but how do you think women's and girls rugby compares in England? You said you played with boys up until the age of 12, which I know does happen a lot here in Florida, especially where there isn't a huge amount, of youth women's rugby. But how would you compare the scene there compared to here when it comes to girls rugby?
Right. Good question. I mean, it's very similar. I think the national pathway in England is slightly better established. But I mean, as far as the standard is concerned, I think it's pretty consistent. I think obviously in England we have a lot more grassroots rugby, so you see girls playing at a lot younger age than they do here. I think that's probably one of the main differences. A lot of girls here don't start until about high school.
And I think did we lose Morgan this time? Did we lose this time? I think we lost her, but that's all right. We'll get her back on. Let's go to on our main lady on the middle of the screen right now, Alex Wantlin. Alex, welcome to Talking Florida Rugby. You obviously have an interesting rugby history as well, a lot different than anybody else in here. So talk to us a little bit about as to how you came up in the game.
I started in California. I was 6 when I started. And it was the same as Morgan. I pretty much just played with boys up until about 11. And then I moved to U18's team, which was and it was all girls. It was a big switch for me at the time. But it was great for me. And then we moved to Florida my freshman year of high school. So we started playing with Wizards rugby, and they were awesome. I loved it. And I also play with, as you see on screen, Atlantis. And yeah, now I'm starting at Life in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. So I'll give you a similar question that I did to Morgan. California girls rugby, how do the numbers there? I know it's quite a bit bigger there than it is. I know in certain areas of California it's a bit bigger here than it is in Florida, but how would you feel your experience was there versus here?
I think California, I was San Diego-ish area, so that's right where the training center was. So I had a lot of, not as much girls, but there's a lot of really good coaches right around that area. So I think that one's just been established a little longer, but I love Florida too. It's on its way up, so it's awesome to see.
Yeah, coaching is the topic I'm going to get into with with Cortney and Morgan, and how that's played a big role in them getting where they are, as the big time coaching that they've had throughout their career. Well, thanks for joining us, Alex. Let's get to our final lady who's joining us this evening. High up on her bunk bed in her dorm at Sacred Heart University. Where is Sacred Heart University, Sandra, for those of us that don't know?
It's in Connecticut, Fairfield, Connecticut.
In Connecticut. So obviously the weather there is pretty reasonable right now, but have you prepared? Do you have your weather gear for a couple of months down the road here?
I do. I'm not used to it, but it's gonna have to do.
How's the heating? How's the heating in the dorm room? Have you checked that out yet? That's the most important thing.
Oh my God! I'm wearing a shirt.
There's no heating, so it's just going to be sweaters and blankets.
Well, our AC is pretty good during the night, but in the morning it does get a little hotter. But I'm pretty sure that'll be changed like when the winter comes and it'll be colder.
Awesome. Well, it's obviously a long way to go from Florida to Connecticut. Now you again, we have 4 ladies here who have very different stories about how they got into rugby and when they did. So tell us a little bit about how you got into rugby, Sandra.
So I used to play soccer like most of my life. I really only played up until 6th grade, then I didn't play a sport. And then it was my junior year. So I was like, I haven't done anything and I just want to try something new. So at my school, they had like a club rush thing and a bunch of clubs were out there. And Coach Simon was out there. And I was like, this looks kind of interesting. So, I signed up and I went that same Saturday. And the teammates, they welcomed me.
Awesome. We lose you again. Are you still there? Having some dorm Wi-Fi issues today, but that's all right. I understand. We'll get Sandra back in a minute. Sean Simon, who she was talking about there, obviously, many of you know him if you saw him, big part of creating the Jupiter Rugby Club and now making the Boynton Rugby Club become a big part of the Florida youth rugby scene with both boys and girls programs that are really exploding. Let's get back to Cortney. She's got solid Wi-Fi. Where are you right now, Cortney? In Atlanta? Oh, as soon as I say that, I can't hear Cortney.
That's because you muted me.
Oh, now I hear you.
Yeah.
That was probably Charlie. I'm blaming Charlie for everything that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
so you're in Atlanta right now, Cortney?
Yes, yeah.
And do you work up there as well as play rugby, I assume?
Yeah, I do.
What do you do up there?
I'm a bartender. So
bartender. That's a good good rugby position.
I know it
rugby
is. It's the 16th position on the field.
Except when you got to get off work on Saturday afternoon and Saturday nights, it's not always a fun.
Whenever I apply for a new job, I'm like, weekends are off limits. Saturdays are a rugby game. Can't do it.
So you moved up to Atlanta, right? You moved up to Atlanta, as you said, to play for. Where did they recruit you initially, the Harlequins?
We were playing at nationals. So we had, I want to say it was Final Four. We were playing at Life University. We had just played against Virginia Tech. I think this was my last year before I graduated. So it was 2018 nationals.
Okay.
And I just played in a game there and I was playing 13. And they're not, it was just more of like a casual, just kind of like conversation. Cause I had talked to them previous years. Cause I did my, 5 years in college strong.
Right.
So I got talked to my 4th year when I probably should have graduated. Don't tell my mom. But so I had heard about the Harlequins and I've had offers to go play for Boston as well, but that was a little too cold for my liking. Especially coming from Florida, I would never make it. And I just love the facility. Coach Ross was such an amazing person to have a conversation with. I was at a collegiate All-American camp and she was there. So when I was there and we were playing and stuff and she's like, oh, she kept kind of pulling it out. She's like, where are you going after you graduate? Where are you coming to?
Right.
We're here if you need somebody. So when I finally graduated, I think I always knew, I was like, I think Atlanta's my move. I think that's where I'm being drawn to play rugby. And
tell us a little bit about the Harlequins Club. I know they also have a Division II women's team as well. Obviously, perhaps one of the larger clubs in the South. Tell us a little bit about how much fun you've had there with the Harlequins.
It's been absolutely phenomenal playing for the Harlequins. That first year that I started playing, there was probably 40 of us just rostered for one team, which was insane to me because that's just insane numbers. And the community we had and the growth that I saw in myself as a player and as a person was just insane. But it's the same, no matter where you go in rugby, you always find that family. You always, no matter where you go, it's when I moved to Atlanta, I didn't know anybody, but then you go to the team, you find people just like you. And all of a sudden it's okay, now I live in Atlanta. This is it. And having the coaching system, we have amazing coaches and everything like that. It's just, people that push you further and then get me to the place of where I'm at now. So absolutely love it.
That's the best thing about rugby. You can go anywhere in the world and find a rugby club and you'll be part of their family immediately. One thing I want to ask you, I'm also going to ask Morgan about this in a second, is, a lot of people that just play club rugby, they're not as familiar perhaps with the invitational, side of things. You played with the Stars, as you can think. I think that's you there wearing looks like a Stars jersey. But
Yeah, that's a Stars jersey. Well, that jersey specifically is from the WPL Elite. So they do like they do an East versus the West. So they do the best of the East and the best of the West, and then they have a competition. So I was selected for the East side for that game.
So selects, as well as obviously, selects in Florida has its ups and downs. We've had years where we've had great select sides and years where we haven't. I'm really hoping that, with once we come back from COVID, with perhaps the loss of national championships at some levels, that select side really takes a step up. But talk about the invitational side of things. I know we have Morgan, we're going to get to in a second, has played some with Phoenix and Stars, obviously one of the biggest invitational sides, as a reputation as one of the biggest sides in the country. How did that come about? And talk about your experience playing with the Stars.
Honestly, every opportunity I get to play rugby, I think is such an amazing opportunity. I mean, without every opportunity I've had, I wouldn't be where I'm at. You meet so many amazing people, and with Stars, I think it's such a good, it's like every time I've gone on a Stars trip, it's been amazing athletes with amazing coaches, and it's developed into friendships that I still have to this day. Also just like amazing coaches that I still talk to this day, who if at any point I have questions, it's like I send them videotapes of what I'm doing. And I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, lower your elbow. You're looking like an idiot. Don't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Why didn't I think of that? But I think that's with any invitational side. It's just people wanting to grow the sport, wanting to get and see you do better as a person. And then if you grow and do better in the sport for the US or just in general, just for fun, it's just an amazing thing that as soon as you, if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend, you should do it. Yeah,
I think some people knock the invitational side of things just because it does occasionally involve, a bit of a financial layout, but I think you get that and more back from the coaching that you get and experiences. Where have you played with the Stars?
I played with them in Chula Vista. They did a sevens tournament. I think there was 8 teams that the Olympic team hosted. So we played against the Falcons, and there was AIC there and all of these amazing sevens teams that we got to play against. So I played with them there, and then I also played with them once in Las Vegas before it decided to shut down.
Hopefully we'll be back there next year, hopefully in the main stadium. Yeah, one thing I always tell people is that you never know who's watching you playing, and it could be somebody from an invitational or select side, and that could be the next step to in your rugby career. Morgan, you've played with Phoenix Selects, who are coached by our sponsor this evening, Ail Hakim. Talk a bit about your experience playing for Phoenix. Did we lose Morgan again? We got to get her to call in. We've had people call in before that have had bad signal. So if anybody's listening, I think my wife's listening, text Morgan and tell her just to get on our phone. Normally a phone signal is better than the Wi-Fi. So even if we can get her on the phone, that'll be good. We can go to Alex, though. Alex, as you're here and live and moving, so that means we have you on. Talk a bit about your experience playing for some select sides. And I mean, going down your resume, it's almost exhausting, reading some of the teams that you've played for, the SoCal All-Star sides, high school Americans at U16 and U18 levels. Obviously, Cerevis and Atavus camps as well, Atlantis and ARPTC, which I'm going to get to in a second. But talk about just the experience of playing sort of select side / invitational rugby and how that's improved you.
Yeah, I think that has been where most of my main improvements have been, just growing level, because it's select people that you're picking. You kind of have cream they can, choose who they want to bring. And it's just an amazing environment to play with everybody there, because everybody wants to be there and get better. And it's just so fun.
Could you pick one invitational / select experience from all the ones you've had so far that sort of stood out more than others? I mean, obviously perhaps the All-American stuff, I would assume.
Actually, I think my most memorable one would be the Barbados for ARPTC a couple months ago. All Americans has been awesome, but I think Barbados was very eye-opening, and it was awesome playing with. I got to play with a couple of the Eagle girls. They were there with us, and it was awesome.
Yeah, Barbados, not a bad place to spend a few days playing rugby. There's no doubt about it. Before I get onto Sandra, Alex, talk a little bit about your sisters. You have 2 very athletic sisters as well, one with some serious rugby experience. So you're a very athletic family. Tell us a little bit about your sisters.
Yeah, so Nicole started playing rugby right after me, She is now playing up at Army, West Point.
Awesome.
And she's mostly flank, but I think having her around the household to compete against each other and play with each other has been awesome. Like, it's put us where we are now. And then we also have our other sister, Jax, who is amazing at soccer, and she's at college at Florida Southern. So just having us to train against each other has been awesome.
Yeah, playing for a good friend of mine, a coach now that he's a Bournemouth fan, so we've got that in common with each other. And I've just got to know him over the last couple of months. So I told him we'd have to get together for a beer when he gets over here. Let's go back to Sandra, who I think we have back with us. She looks like she's moving. There she is. Is Charlie awake though? Or is he getting thunderstorms like I am? Charlie, get Sandra on the big screen there.
I think, yeah, I'm in.
There we go. There's Sandra. So Sandra, before we lost you the first time, if we lose you again, if you do it on your phone, I don't know how your phone signal is in there, but you can also do it on your phone. Even if we don't get you on video, we can get you on audio. But I wanted to ask you, when you saw that rugby table at school with Simon, who is always very enthusiastic in his recruiting, I know. What did you know anything about rugby when you saw that table?
No idea. Literally no idea. I just thought he had like a TV with clips, and I was like, that looks like fun.
That's awesome. So had you played any real? Obviously, you said you played soccer, but you hadn't played any real like contact tackling or anything like that at that point, I assume.
No, never. I have not.
And so when you started playing rugby, what was it that really drew you to continue? And listen, some people think, oh, I'm going to love this sport, and then they get tackled first of all, and they're like, ouch, I don't want to do this anymore. But what really, as we see some highlights of you here, running some people over, what was the first thing about rugby that really inspired you to keep going?
Because I was getting frustrated with, getting used to passing the ball backwards. Am I good?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just speak up a little bit.
Okay, sorry. I think it was just getting used to passing the ball backwards and stuff. I was getting really frustrated with myself. My teammates were like, picking me, like, you're doing fine. Like, you're doing great for your first time. And it was just like, they treated me like their own. Like, I was family already. And it just felt good. And that's what really made me want to come more and just develop the skill and, like, create family. Because you create, like, family forever through rugby, really.
Awesome. And do you prefer hitting people, or do you prefer getting hit, or knocking people over, I should say, or making the tackle?
How about both?
Yeah, we saw in your highlights there that you definitely like to get running downhill, and there's some people that don't want to tackle you. There's no doubt about it. So Sacred Heart. Yeah. So Sacred Heart, obviously NCAA is an emerging women's sport, so they do have opportunities, a little more scholarship opportunities than some men's college programs do. But how has your experience been up there? Have you been able to practice up there yet?
No, we are not having a preseason or a fall season. So we'll continue workouts, but as far as any games, we will not have any. Okay,
so just workouts for now, and obviously the brain workouts going to class.
Yeah.
Hoping it stays warm as long as possible. All right, we have Morgan back now, I think, live.
Yes.
From the middle of live from a concrete bunker in the middle of Missouri.
Yes, Missouri technology, love it.
We were talking to Cortney about invitational sides. Now you've obviously got a chance to play with Phoenix, who is obviously the program organized and coached by our sponsor this evening, Ale Hakeem. Talk about how that experience of playing invitational rugby has helped you as a player.
Yeah, it was awesome. It gives you a chance to play with players that otherwise you wouldn't be able to play with, players from different states, sometimes even different countries. And I loved every second of it, and I think one of the challenges with it was that we didn't get to train together a lot, but when we came together to play, we were still able to form those connections and have that chemistry. So yeah, I loved it.
And you played with Atlantis, right, as well? Because I think I remember that maybe the second time I went to Vegas, the first game I refereed, you were playing for Atlantis. Talk about talk about that club and the experience, because I know Alex has done some of that as well. Did you play with one of the Wantlins there with her older sister, maybe?
Yes.
What year was that?
Yes.
That was probably 2017.
I don't think with Atlantis.
Oh, okay. But, so I remember Morgan playing.
Right.
I know obviously Alex and Nicole both played with Atlantis. That's a slightly different invitational. How does that differ from Phoenix?
When I played for Atlantis, it was always high school rugby, so it feels like such a long time ago now. But it was, the same thing. You got to meet girls that were from different states that you otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to play with. And it's just a different standard. It's a higher standard. At the time I was playing for Ruckus and just playing in Florida, but playing for Atlantis in Vegas and in New York, it just really helped me to get a higher standard of rugby before going off to college. So I really enjoyed it and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said before, any chance you can get to play invitational rugby, it's an awesome experience.
Right.
Let's go back to Cortney. Now, Cortney, you're involved in the USA program at the moment. How did that happen? And where are you at the moment with that? 7s versus 15s we'll also talk about. But yeah, talk about your experience so far with USA Rugby.
Okay. Well, it was a really random. I never really I always obviously wanted to play for USA, but I never really thought it was an option. So I just started playing for the WPL, and I think it was my second game of the WPL. I got a call from Rob, and he was just like, "Hey, hope everything's going great." He's like, "I've watched your games. I want you to be in the USA pool." And I was just like,
drop the phone.
I was just like,
somebody was messing with you.
I was like, this is a prank call. I was like, also, I don't even know what that means. What? Okay, great. Thank you. That's it. And I didn't really think anything of it. And I was just like, okay, I'm in this pool now. But what does the pool mean?
Right. Yeah, a lot of people might not understand that. So yeah, explain it to us.
Yeah. So the pool there's actually 3 tiers to it. So there's the high performance players who are, I think it's roughly about 30 athletes in it. And it's the 30 of the players that are just expected to be playing in the next game. That's who they think are going to be in it. Right. And then there's the next tier, and it's just the athletes of players who are they're there, but they just have to compete for that spot. I'm competing to get to that top 30. I'm competing to get there, but it doesn't mean you're out for the count. And then there's the players to watch pool, which is the athletes of we're here and we're pushing you to be better just so that one day we're there.
Sure.
But don't count us out kind of thing. So when I got the call, I was just a wider player pool. I was like, hey, you're just in it. And I was like, great, glad to dip my toes in it. Let's do this.
Right.
And then I got a call 3 or 4 weeks later, and he was like, hey, it's Rob again. I bet you know why I'm calling. And I was like, again?
Just checking on me, maybe?
Yeah, I was like, 0 for 2. I still don't know why you're calling me. Because the first time I never would have guessed. And he was like, well, this is an invite to see if you'd like to come play with me on tour. And I was just like, there's a tour? I was like, there's things going on. And they're like, yeah, we would love for you to be a part of that. I was like, me too. Okay, what do I have to do? They're like, get off of work for 2 months. I was like, say less. I can do it.
That's one thing you can do as a bartender. You can just say, hey, somebody else wants my hours.
Yep.
I'll see you in a couple of months. So you talk about that tour that you went on.
Yeah, so it was amazing. It was cold, but it was so much fun.
Yes, November in England is a little chilly.
November in Chicago. That was
Chicago first. Yeah, sorry.
Chicago was first. So actually the picture that they're showing, that was when we were playing against England A team. And I scored the game-winning try against them. So it was just so much fun. Yeah, that's it. I look like such a child, but it was so much fun. It was absolutely amazing to play because obviously England has so many, I'd never played in an international match, and I'm playing against these girls who've been playing, I think the most on their team had 100 caps. It was just insane to me that I felt like an idiot. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to play against someone who knows what they think I'm going to do next. They knew more what I was going to do than I knew what I was going to do. I had no idea, but it was just such an amazing opportunity and such an amazing experience to be a part of and grow. I'm so thankful for that. But then and then we played Ireland. Well, we played England twice. We lost the first time, won the second. And then we played against Ireland. And then that was the first official big win for USA. So we were super excited for that too. But but it's been absolutely amazing. And then after that tour, we keep going to like camps and things like that. So camps are always happening.
Villa Vista, right? As well, played a few games out there.
Yeah. So got looked at to go play sevens as well. Kind of pushed back. They're like, "We think you're a 15s player," and I was like, "I respect that." I was like, "I just like to hit people as hard as I can. I get it." So then I started playing mostly 15s and just going to those camps. But I think as a player, I've started to progress in a way where I've started to be more of a sevens player, just based off of years of playing now. It's like when I first was looked at a couple years ago, it's like I was playing after D1 college at UCF, never really like a higher level rugby.
Right.
So it was like after 4 years of playing rugby, I, played at an international level, which is not ideal. And it's like, here I am after playing a couple years of higher level WPL team, international games, all these different things, that now it's like I have developed more as a threatening player rather than just like pure heart, just go for it. So I think now I'm starting to see more of a sevens game in myself. And so I've actually been playing more with the sevens team than the 15s team, which has been so much fun. I played with the Falcons this past time. Instead of like instead of Las Vegas, it was the LA Sevens.
Right.
So I just played with them at that last tour. And that was a lot of fun. And great to be a part of. And so that's a fun squad to play with, because I can hope we will be the next squad after this Olympic team.
For sure. We'll get back to sevens versus 15s in a little bit. I'm sure everybody has their opinion on that.
Right.
Let's go to Alex real quick. Alex, you're a big time soccer player in high school. You said your sister obviously plays at the college level. Did you have any soccer offers to go play college soccer?
Actually, yes, I did. I had a couple of offers to go for just kind of if I wanted to, but it was never even in my head. Rugby was always.
Now let's get to how you spent some time recently. You were going to go, I think, to life in this fall, but you've kind of pushed that back now to the spring.
Yeah.
Talk about the ARPTC, which you'll have to remind me. I'm not going to try and screw it up. So what does ARPTC stand for? And tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so ARPTC stands for American Rugby Pro Training Center, and it's based in Little Rock, Arkansas. And pretty much it's a full-time training environment, and you kind of go in and it's intense training, and you start kind of here, but by the end of it, you've shot up here, and it's been awesome to watch just kind of how I've progressed through the months. I was only there for 2 months, but I think my level of like rugby IQ and just my build has improved.
Awesome. So give us an example of a week, maybe a week to 10 days at ARPTC. How do you spend your days, and how much do you play versus working out? And because listen, I know of the ARPTC, but I don't know anybody that's been to it before. So you'll give you some good insight.
Oh yeah, it's intense. It's early morning wake up, so about 6:30 you get up, and then Mondays and Wednesdays there's yoga in the morning. Thursdays you have core in the morning. Tuesdays was 7:30 lifts, and then straight from those you go into pretty much about a 4-hour practice, and then you have a little bit of downtime, or you go to your next lift, and then straight from the lift you go right back to practice it's usually only about 2 hours, and then you're off for the day. You can kind of chill out. So that's nice to have a rest.
There you go. As you said, you're gonna take some classes, I think, online for Life in the fall, and then you'll be eligible to play there. Hopefully, when things get going in the spring. What really enticed you to go to Life? Obviously, one of the best rugby programs in the country, but I'm sure there were other places you could have gone as well. But what really attracted you to Life?
I think after I did a couple of visits there, just seeing the team and how they all are like a family, because I love kind of rugby and how the basis of rugby and how everyone is family. And I think it was just like that. And their level of play and how they push each other, I think it's really healthy, and I like the environment.
Awesome. Let's go back to Sandra, who was talking about family as well and how she's really found that in rugby. Sandra, how were you nervous about going this far to play college rugby? Obviously, you could have come and played anywhere here in Florida, but obviously you took the opportunity to go up to Connecticut and play. What are you most nervous about getting started there and playing?
I think I really like playing in the cold. I think that'll be my
Yes.
number one. And playing on the turf, I've only played on turf one time. I had a tournament in Georgia. That was my very first time playing on turf, and like my knees, the burn, it was really bad. But like all my teammates have been really welcoming. As same with my coaches, like they really all like they just want to get to know me, and like I love it. Like so I'm not really nervous about that, but it's just the cold. I'm not used to it. The coldest in Florida is like 50, 60. Here it gets like below
it's going to
zero.
be. You're going to have some serious stuff up there. I mean, they have a decent some decent indoor facilities there where you can throw a ball around if if it's too cold outside.
I believe so.
Okay, talk about position wise. Where have you played? I know you mentioned you played some prop, I think, and you've obviously played some sevens as well, inside, outside, center. Where do they see you playing at Sacred Heart? Where do you love to play the most?
Well, yeah, in Florida, I played most of my I played for Boynton Bulldogs rugby. So we had a lot of forwards, and I'm not bragging, but like I did have like I really don't want to brag, but
you can brag. You can brag on here.
They put me in the back line because I have a speed to my ability. So they would put me in the back line, inside, outside, center, which is what I'm used to. But at the same time, coach described me as a hybrid. So either wherever they needed me, really, I would go in the pack, or I would just play in the back line wherever they need me. But as far as Sacred Heart, they want me to play flanker and prop.
Awesome. Two very different positions, but two positions where you can have a big impact on the field. Is obviously, especially on the scrum. Let's go to Morgan, who's living somewhere where it does get pretty cold. What advice can you give to Sandra about living in the cold and playing rugby in the cold, Morgan? I know it doesn't get as cold in Missouri as it does in Connecticut, but it does get pretty cold. You played in England. What advice can you give to Sandra about playing in the cold?
Oh my God. I mean, from England with the rain, sometimes you put plastic bags inside your boots, but other than that, you just got to wear layers, and just get through it. It's tough. Like even here in Missouri, it gets pretty cold. So, I'm sure you'll get used to it. And
now, like Sandra, you played a lot of positions throughout your rugby career. Where does Lindenwood see you at the moment, and where do you see yourself, and what do you enjoy the most?
So freshman year I came in, and I sort of dabbled in a few positions, but I mostly played 6 and 7. And recently my coach has been talking about putting me at scrum half. I've kind of done a bunch of different positions, and coaches always have a different vision for me, and I just kind of take it as it comes, I guess.
Which do you like the most, though? Do you like flanker the most?
Open side flanker.
Just like getting over those Ruckus and
100%.
Jacqueline. I've seen you do it. And
Yes.
how did the move to Lindenwood come about?
So I was playing for Miami Amazons at the time, and one of my teammates, Amanda Divitz, she had played at Lindenwood, and Billy got in contact with her and asked her to put him in contact with me, and so I started emailing him back and forth, and I came to Lindenwood for a visit, and I pretty much fell in love with it.
Does it remind you of England? I know Missouri is very green like England, and the weather's probably a little similar. Maybe it gets a little hotter there in the summer, but in the fall, winter, it's
a little bit during the winter. It could be very grey, very rainy, but it doesn't get as cold in England as it gets here. I would say England is actually slightly warmer, surprisingly.
And before I get to Cortney with this question as well, you've had plenty of success at sevens with Lindenwood so far, as well as 15s. Which do you prefer, and where do you see your future between those two? Obviously, might not be decided by you in the end.
Right. I love them both in different ways. I honestly, I couldn't pick. I'm grateful that at Lindenwood we get to do a bit of both, and we sometimes have sevens tournaments. Vegas is in March-ish, so we kind of, we went to Tropical Sevens last year, so we get a good mix of them both, and I love them in different ways. I couldn't decide.
How about you, Cortney? Again, you talked about the fact you've played a ton of 7s and 15s. I think you've gone back and forth on this call. Even you seem to think that you think you're a 7s player, but other people seem to see you as a 15s player. So what do you see yourself, and what do you like about each?
I think I actually prefer 15s over 7s, which I used to be, I think, more hardcore 7s player. But I think I enjoy the game of 15s because it's more like a chess match. I mean, both you see that in 7s and 15s, but I think 15s it's not about like, how do I win in this, but like 7s, it's like, how do I win this here right now in this moment? And 15s gives you more of a, okay, how do I just move forward one pawn forward? What is that one pawn forward to get me to the next? Like, obviously the ultimate goal is, scoring that try and going on from there. But it's that game. It's the fun psychological game you play with this team. And it's more of the mental of that game rather than the mental physical you get from 7s. Which I mean, I enjoy both because I do, I'm probably that one person. I loved fitness. You can even ask Evan, he coached me at one point. And I remember we had a conversation because he would always make us do all these fitness drills. And I smile when I'm in pain. Like, I'm always like, I'll be sprinting, doing whatever it is, and I'll be smiling. And I remember there was one time Evan was like, we're going to do this until Cortney stops smiling. And I was like, I smile when I'm like sprinting. So I was like, we're just going to keep going. Like, this is just going to keep happening.
It's a good trait to have, though.
Yeah. I was like, but then also, like, from his perspective, he just sees me smirking at his trying to make me in pain, So it's like, I see why he could get mad at someone like me who's like running how many Broncos or how many, beat test things. And I'm just like what's going on? So, but I enjoy the physical of that and being mentally drained, but still trying to the physical game of yourself. Like, the game at that point, the 7s game is how am I going to beat myself? And 15s is how am I going to beat this other team?
For sure. Now, I think a concern for many parents when their daughter says they're going to start playing rugby is the concern of getting injured. Have you managed to avoid major injuries during your career? And if so, how do you think you've done that? As you said, your ballet background, it may have improved your balance and your footwork, which obviously helps you get out of some situations now and again. But how have you dealt with the injury side of things?
Luckily, I've never had any concussions, knock on wood. So that's a set. I've actually only had one surgery, which was I had a spiral fracture. So I have 3 screws. But after I had the surgery, I was playing in 4 weeks. So in 1 month.
Okay.
Yeah. It was because as soon as the screws were in there, like, it's not going anywhere. So I was able to start training in like 2 weeks after it happened. But I don't even know. The grace is
just a bit of luck, right? Yeah, a bit of luck. As you said, getting yourself in shape.
Getting in shape. Yes. I think that has a lot to do with it is, I guess, like, my drive to want to be the most in shape. So it's never been like I'm putting myself because I'm tired into these places and then my body's exhausted and then I'm doing something. It's like, at least I'm doing it even when I'm, at that. And then, I mean, I sprained a couple ankles. I think we've all done that, but I did that from dance. I think a lot of them came through from there.
Gotcha.
But I guess it's just like, I think the biggest thing that Coach Raul has always said is if you're going to do something, you got to do it 100%. Because if you don't do it 100%, that's when you get hurt.
For sure.
So whenever I play rugby, I go 100%, even in practice, which is probably not the best idea. But I'm like, you got to go 100%. And then someone else might get hurt. But I'm like, here I am. So
now, as the elder stateswoman of this group of 4 here, three other ladies at very different stages of their rugby careers. What advice would you have to them just on getting through the life of a women's rugby player?
Oh God. Well,
your team. One.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. Well,
maybe as well, you can include some advice that you've been given, as you mentioned that little tidbit from Raul there. That maybe some tips that you've been given as well that have got you to where you are.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, the biggest thing is go 100%. And then I guess like one advice I got from one of the coaches was that like you as a player are exactly who you're supposed to be on the field when you play. And it's not necessarily that you're not good enough to play for a position. It's what the coaches are looking for, like what the coach wants from specific players. Because I used to beat myself up not getting selected for things all the time. I'd be like, oh, I'm not good enough here. You know, if only I was better at this than I am at this. But it's like what I give to the field is what no one else gives at that thing. So if a coach wants that, I'm going to get picked. If a coach doesn't want it, I don't get picked. But it's not. It has nothing to do with me at that point. It's what the coach is, because each team you play against in rugby, you need a different set of like pawns, if you will. So everyone that you're playing with, you need that field. You need to build a team that gets you there. And it's like, yeah, of course, sometimes this one isn't here. You know, we're going to use this in the next game because this game is about this specifically. So for me, it's like I'm a hard hitter. I pin my ears back. You give me the ball. I'm just going to run as hard as I can. Well, maybe in this game, we need someone who's more of a kicker. It's like, sure, I can kick, but why not get someone who is the best at kicking and get her in the position where I would be and have her have a go at this specific game and then let that coach work from there. So you can't bring yourself down. You have to realize that like life's a game. You know, life is game just as much as the game is the game. Play hard, have fun, and don't just like keep wanting to be better, but without like letting someone tear you down from it, you know?
For sure.
And that sounds terrible, but
no, that's great words of advice.
Yeah. I've definitely been in positions where you get so caught up thinking I'm not good enough, and you can't do that because then you never get better.
Now let's go back to Morgan. Morgan, you played some high school Americans and the women's junior All-Americans. Where do you stand in sort of the USA rugby scene at the moment?
I believe I'm in the extended pool that Cortney was talking about, sort of the lowest tier right now. I've had a couple conversations with Rob. Funny story, actually. Rob used to coach me when I was 15 for London and Southeast England. So that was insane when he got selected as the head coach and I saw him. I gave him a massive hug. It's funny where we all end up. But I had a conversation with him and he basically was honest with me and said, you're not big enough to be a flanker for the national team. You know, I'm only, 5'3", 150 pounds. They're looking for someone a bit bigger than that. But, he said that they've thought about me as potentially being a hooker. And it's, those specific skill sets that I need to work on if I want to make the team. So, yeah.
Awesome stuff. And obviously you've been through a lot of years of rugby. Would you have any advice for the likes of Sandra, who's really just starting out her rugby career, and Alex as well? Alex obviously had an older sister go through the rugby programs, but what advice would you have to, especially to anybody who might be watching as well?
Just have fun and enjoy it while you can. And, work on little things to get better every day. That's pretty much it. You can always improve. There's always things that you can be doing. It's those things that you do off the field that are going to, get you far. When the coaches aren't watching, when you're on your own, just work on those little things to better yourself every day.
For sure. Now, Charlie, I know you're listening, talks about having fun. Morgan likes to have fun. We know that. Those of her that know her, those of us that know her well, or reasonably well even. Charlie, do you have that little video clip we have? There's a famous photo of Morgan with her. I'm not sure which tournament that was. We were looking at this before the.
Oh, what was that?
Morgan loves to get her hair done. Right, not done, but she loves to get her hair in good shape before she goes out there and plays. The face was the photo of this one. I wanted to add. You got the video as well, Charlie? I don't know if he has the video as well. If he does, but anyway, we'll bring up Alex. Alex, speaking of hair, I know you like to play with a very long ponytail. I assume your sister does the same. I know Sandra's got some serious hair, Morgan as well, and Cortney. Talk about how many times have you had your hair pulled playing rugby, and how much does that annoy you?
Oh, I've had it so many times. Honestly, I can't be annoyed anymore because it's my own doing. I have the long hair. I can't get mad at them. But it is.
Obviously, sometimes it just kind of happens accidentally in a tackle, Sandra, you said you haven't been playing for long yet, but have you had that happen yet? Have you had your hair pulled yet in a tackle? Especially, the high school levels sometimes.
I have not. My hair is always I try to keep it in a bun as much as I can, but I haven't pulled yet, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's a tough thing as a referee myself. It's a tough thing to call because you said sometimes it's just kind of in a tackle. You're not sort of sure where you're grabbing. You're grabbing his shirt, and sometimes you accidentally grab the hair, and it always looks a lot worse than it actually does. Sandra, do you have any questions for these ladies that with their years and years of experience heading into your collegiate career?
I mean, I believe you guys covered it all. I mean, I know it's gonna be hard getting used to like the routine, and practices might be tougher than high school practices, but I believe you guys covered it all. And really, I'm just ready to start, and I appreciate the advice that you guys have given me. I would definitely, work on that and take that into consideration and do it. So I just really appreciate it.
No, it's awesome. I think everybody's ready to get out there, especially those of us that haven't been playing for a while and just hit somebody, or just I'm ready to blow a whistle and show somebody a yellow card. Before we finish up here, let's bring on our esteemed sponsor this evening, Ale Hakim, who has obviously been involved with women's rugby for many. How many years is it now, Ale?
About 7 now.
And talk a bit about your women's coaching career.
Well, I started off at FAU Women's. That's actually when I first met Morgan. She decided to come out to one of the FAU Women's training camps. And unfortunately, she couldn't play for FAU because I think she was about 16 and in high school.
Hey, I think I played for FAU at 16. Things were a little different back then, though.
But then I kept in contact with her, and when I moved on to coaching at Fort Miami, I brought her in, and she was a great addition before she left for Lindenwood. And then obviously I've coached the Phoenix for about 5 years now, and I've had the pleasure of having Cortney beat me a few times with Orlando. And then I also had Morgan come with me to nationals. Well, she missed one nationals and then came with me to the next one. And then Alex, I've experienced with coaching, helping out coaching Wellington a couple times. And then Sandra, I know her through her assistant coach at Sacred Heart, actually. She was a player for Phoenix as well.
Awesome. Yeah, talk about how Phoenix got started. By the way, I'm glad you have that bookshelf in the background. Otherwise, this would look like a hostage video with the lighting you have going there. But talk a bit about how you got what prompted you to start Phoenix and how it's gone so far.
So the start of Phoenix happened when I was coaching the women's HPP program, and I got in contact actually with a bunch of the backline players because that was my role. I was the backline coach. And I started talking with some of the collegiate players, mainly was Lindsay Corin was the first player that I started talking to. And she was telling me how there was nothing for the collegiate players during the summer. So we decided, okay, well, we're going to put together a random side and, whatever happens, happens. It wasn't meant to be anything really competitive at that point. Just trying to build up, the skill sets and bring players together. And then as it progressed, we started to get a little more competitive. And then I started bringing in players from, 1 or 2 players that had played at a higher level to try and give the girls the experience of playing with players at a higher level. And then from that, we started taking tours. We've been to Dubai, to Amsterdam Sevens. We did the Barbados tournament. So those type of tournaments always bring the level up even more. In Dubai, we played in pools where we were matched up against Japan's A side and Russia's A side and Ireland's A side. And we were competitive in every game. So you're getting to be able to play with players that play in the WPL, players that are collegiate players, some international players. So it just builds it up all together.
Talk about the challenges of managing. I know there are probably many of them, managing an invitational side, and obviously the logistics of it, number one, but talk about a little bit about that.
The logistics behind it are obviously just making sure that you can get enough for a team that can afford going to some of these places. Because you talk about going to Dubai, that's $1,500 easy per player. So they have to be able to compete at that level because you don't want to throw, a brand new player in against Japan and expect them to do well. So you need to look for players of that level as well as being able to afford to get there. And if they can't afford, how you can work out a way to make sure that they can get there.
And now you're coaching, obviously, Boca men now. Be careful here because there's 4 very strong women to the right of you on the camera here. Talk about the differences between coaching men and women.
So the main difference is that men won't do what you tell them to do, But when things go wrong, they can change things very easily. Women will do exactly what you say to a fault, and then when things go wrong, it takes a lot more to get them to change what's going on. So I find both ways to coach, people. Coaching women and coaching men, obviously there's slight differences in the way you want to coach them, and women react to things that men don't typically react to, and men react to things differently than women do. But overall, both sets are amazing to coach. I love coaching women and I love coaching the men. It's just different things that go on. I get frustrated because the men don't necessarily do exactly what I say, whereas I'll pull my hair out when the women don't change their tactics. Like, for instance, Morgan's first game. Morgan is an aggressive flanker. She's a very aggressive player. She likes to go over top of the ball, but she gets blown up 4 or 5 times in a row, doesn't change the tactic. Then all of a sudden she gets a yellow card in her very first game playing for Fort Miami. So that's just the only thing that I could say. But everything else it's amazing to coach both sides. I love just coaching in general.
As Scott Duval says there on the screen, one of our referees, Ale does a great job for rugby in Florida. Do you prefer coaching men and women, Ale, or is you just happy to be out there teaching people the game?
I enjoy coaching the game in general.
So before we go, tell us a little bit about, obviously, your gracious sponsor of our episode this evening. Tell us a little bit about Elite Public Adjusters and what they can do for anybody watching this evening.
So we're insurance adjusters that help people basically get money out of insurance claims. If you were to have an insurance claim, most of the time the insurance company is only worried about what their bottom dollar number is. And we're there to make sure that you get paid properly on an insurance claim, make sure that you don't wait too long to get paid, and make sure that, you can fix your house if you have an insurance claim, like a fire or flood or hurricane or whatever. And right now we're offering, obviously, to review your insurance policies. Anyone that's in the South Florida area, I'll go out to your house and take photos before a storm to make sure that we have it documented before and after if anything were to happen on the house.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, you can visit Ale at theelitepa.com or call 844-435-4831. Ale, the eyebrows are looking sharp tonight, mate. I'm going to give you that, especially on HD.
Yeah, well, that's the girlfriend's doing. She took me for a nice spa day before my 40th birthday.
I can only assume. I'm not sure how that'll come. I'm not sure how that'll go down once you get back to practice with the Boca boys. But anyway, do you have any final advice for these ladies before we let everybody go? We've been going here for a good hour and a quarter now, almost.
Enjoy it. Remember, it's a game, and you're supposed to have fun and take every opportunity that you can, because there's never a bad opportunity to go play rugby.
No doubt about it. Well, hopefully we'll see all these ladies out on the rugby field. I hope by January. Obviously, Florida is a little bit behind everybody else in the United States. Luckily, all 4 ladies here will be outside of Florida, where they may get to start a little earlier than us. But Alex, Morgan, Sandra, and Cortney, I thank you for joining us this evening on Talking Florida Rugby. It's been an awesome episode. If anybody has any final words, you can put your hand up, or are we good to go? Well, as always.
No, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you coming on again. You can always watch if you didn't catch this live, you can watch the replay on YouTube, rugbyfl.com/TFRO. It's available. It'll be available on all podcast platforms. Normally a couple of hours, if even less than that, when Charlie does his work properly, which he did do tonight. I'll give him credit behind the scenes. Charlie's the one that runs the show behind the scenes, puts up all these videos, all the photos, which all the girls, thank you for providing all those, because without that, the show is very boring.
We have one more video to show, Russ.
Okay, go ahead, Charlie. He's got one more video that he didn't get to show. Oh, yes, we found it.
There we go.
The famous Morgan. It's the look she gives. It's the look in the photo and the look at the end of the video. So if you can get yourself up to Missouri, you can see
Charlie.
That hair flip.
Thank you for showing that.
You see that hair flip.
That was Andrea.
Right. Thank you.
That was AD, who's standing right next to me here. She's gonna lean her head in and say hi to her fellow lady ruggers. But yeah, awesome show tonight, guys. Thanks for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you out on a rugby pitch soon.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.